Recent developments indicate a fascinating and potentially pivotal moment in Japan's strategic defense planning, revolving around the acquisition of next-generation air combat capabilities. Reports have surfaced suggesting that the former United States President, Donald Trump, proactively proposed the availability of Boeing's highly advanced F-47 sixth-generation stealth fighter aircraft to Japan. This offer appears to have been communicated during a period when Japan is grappling with significant concerns about the projected timeline and progress of the Global Combat Air Program, GCAP, a collaborative venture with Italy and the United Kingdom aimed at developing a sophisticated sixth-generation combat aircraft. The anxieties surrounding potential delays in the GCAP initiative seem to be compelling Tokyo to explore alternative pathways to modernize its air fleet, including the possibility of augmenting its existing orders for the F-35 fifth-generation stealth fighter. The initial suggestion of an export-configured F-47 by Mr. Trump reportedly occurred concurrently with his announcement in March that Boeing had secured the contract for the U.S. Air Force's Next Generation Air Dominance (NGAD) manned combat jet program, from which the F-47 design originates. This context suggests a deliberate effort to promote this new American air superiority platform to key allies almost immediately after its domestic selection. Parallel to these discussions, Japan is understood to be seriously contemplating an increase in its procurement of F-35 fighters, a move largely driven by apprehensions that the GCAP aircraft, which is intended to be a cornerstone of Japan's future air defense, might not achieve operational readiness within the desired timeframe to meet pressing security needs. Further details regarding the F-47 offer emerged from a report by the esteemed Japanese daily newspaper, Asahi Shimbun, which indicated that the potential sale was a topic of discussion during a telephone conversation between Mr. Trump and the Japanese Prime Minister, Shigeru Ishiba, just last week. Officials from Prime Minister Ishiba's administration reportedly confirmed this rather short-notice call, which notably took place shortly before Ryosei Akazawa, Japan's chief trade negotiator, was scheduled to visit the United States for crucial discussions concerning economic tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. This timing, while officially separate, adds a layer of complexity to the geopolitical and economic undercurrents of the defense discussions. During their conversation, Mr. Trump and Prime Minister Ishiba are said to have touched upon the broader theme of strengthening the U.S.-Japanese military alliance, a cornerstone of security in the Indo-Pacific region. In a characteristic move, the U.S. leader reportedly inquired if Prime Minister Ishiba concurred that 47 was a favorable number. This seemingly innocuous comment is widely interpreted as a reference to the F-47 designation for the new Boeing fighter, which itself is an echo of the fact that Mr. Trump holds the distinction of being the 47th U.S. president, a symbolic link he appears keen to emphasize. The Asahi Shimbun's account also noted that Mr. Trump took the opportunity to laud the capabilities of the F-22 Raptor, a highly regarded air superiority fighter that was famously never exported, and a more enigmatic aircraft he referred to as the F-55. This F-55, according to Mr. Trump's earlier remarks to the press this month, is purportedly a developmental evolution of the F-35, envisioned as a twin-engined variant. However, it is crucial to note that neither the manufacturer, Lockheed Martin, nor the Pentagon has provided any official confirmation or substantiation that such an aircraft program is actively underway, leaving its status highly speculative. According to Japanese officials privy to the conversation, Mr. Trump directly questioned Prime Minister Ishiba about Japan's interest in acquiring U.S.-manufactured fighter aircraft and emphatically promised to secure the best possible options for Japan. These same officials were careful to point out that this offer concerning the purchase of U.S. combat jets was not explicitly linked to, or presented as a condition for, any ongoing or forthcoming tariff negotiations, attempting to delineate defense cooperation from trade disputes. At this current juncture, there is no concrete indication that Tokyo is actively seeking to introduce an entirely new type of fighter jet into its already sophisticated inventory. However, it is noteworthy that earlier this year, Prime Minister Ishiba did express an interest in potentially acquiring C-17 Globemaster III strategic transport aircraft from the United States. This particular acquisition path presents its own challenges, primarily because Boeing's C-17 production line has been closed for some time. Consequently, any C-17s, for Japan would likely need to be sourced either from existing U.S. Air Force stocks or transferred from the inventory of another allied operator, a complex logistical and political undertaking. Officially, and for the time being, Japan remains firmly committed to the Global Combat Air Program. This ambitious trilateral initiative is focused on fielding a cutting-edge, crewed sixth-generation fighter, a platform known in the United Kingdom, one of the key partners, as the Tempest. The program represents a significant investment in sovereign capability and international defense collaboration for all three nations involved. Nevertheless, there are now discernible signs suggesting that Japan harbors growing concerns about whether the Tempest fighter, the flagship product of GCAP, will be operationally available soon enough to meet its strategic requirements and timelines for replacing older aircraft and maintaining a technological edge. Citing information from two anonymous defense sources, Reuters has reported that Japanese defense planners are actively evaluating methods to bridge a potential capability gap in their fighter fleet that could arise from the anticipated delayed arrival of the GCAP aircraft. One of these sources attributed the slow pace of the GCAP initiative to a perceived lack of urgency on the part of Italy and the United Kingdom. The other source highlighted the inherent complexities and time-consuming nature of aligning each participating nation's distinct operational concepts and requirements for how the advanced aircraft will ultimately function and be integrated into their respective air forces. In response to such concerns, a spokesperson for the British Ministry of Defence conveyed to Reuters a message of confidence, stating the United Kingdom, Italy and Japan are focused on delivering a next-generation combat aircraft for 2035 and we are making strong progress. However, this optimistic outlook has been somewhat clouded by recent statements from at least one senior British official involved in the GCAP team, who has mentioned a target timeframe for the Tempest to replace the Royal Air Force's Typhoon fighters in the 2040s, a later date than the initially projected 2035 service entry. Faced with these potential delays, one of the primary options under consideration by Japan involves procuring additional F-35 Lightning II stealth fighters. Japan already stands as the largest international customer for this fifth-generation aircraft. The Japan Air Self-Defense Force (JASDF) is currently in the midst of a substantial program to introduce a total of 147 Joint Strike Fighters. This fleet is planned to consist of 105 units of the conventional takeoff and landing F-35A variant and 42 units of the short takeoff and vertical landing STOVL F-35B variant. These STOVL jets are specifically earmarked for deployment aboard Japan's two Izumo-class helicopter carriers, which have undergone significant modifications to enable them to operate these advanced F-35B aircraft, effectively transforming them into light aircraft carriers. Reuters further reports that senior officials in Tokyo are now actively discussing the possibility of acquiring even more F-35s, although the precise numbers involved in this potential supplementary purchase remain unclear at this stage. The consideration of more F-35s is, however, complicated by existing issues. Currently, Japan has taken delivery of 43 F-35s, while the delivery of 6 F-35Bs has encountered delays. More broadly, persistent delays in F-35 deliveries, largely attributed to the intricate process of introducing critical software and hardware upgrades such as the Technology Refresh 3, or TR3, package, have significantly impacted the overall program schedule. This raises questions about how quickly additional F-35 aircraft could realistically be supplied to Japan, even if an order were to be placed imminently. A senior lawmaker from Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party voiced this frustration to Reuters, commenting on the current F-35 delays: "We have already paid for many items, and they haven't arrived. It's not right to be told to buy more when previous orders haven't been fulfilled." Despite these delivery challenges, if Japan were to proceed with an order for more F-35s, such a move could offer a potential economic advantage, serving as a valuable bargaining chip for Tokyo in the context of ongoing tariff discussions with Washington. Ryosei Akazawa, Japan's top trade negotiator, acknowledged this possibility, telling reporters, Japan's purchase of defense equipment would contribute to the U.S. trade surplus, so in that sense, it could be considered in trade talks. A second option available to Japan is to invest in upgrading its existing fleet of fourth-generation fighter aircraft. This formidable force currently comprises approximately 85 indigenously developed Mitsubishi F-2 fighters, which share design similarities with the F-16, and around 200 McDonnell Douglas F-15J Eagle interceptors. A significant portion of the F-15J fleet, specifically 68 aircraft, has already been designated for a long-anticipated and comprehensive upgrade program. This modernization effort aims to bring them to the F-15JSI, Japanese Super Interceptor, standard, which will involve the integration of advanced new radar systems, sophisticated electronic warfare suites, the capability to carry new and more potent weaponry, and potentially other enhancements to extend their operational effectiveness. An upgrade program for the Mitsubishi F-2s, however, would represent a new development. Such an initiative could prove crucial in ensuring Japan maintains a robust combat air capability during the interim period leading up to the eventual arrival and operationalization of the GCAP fighter, or an alternative next-generation platform. However, were Japan to decide to purchase a substantial number of additional F-35s, such a decision could potentially jeopardize the future of its involvement in the GCAP altogether. If Japan, a critical partner with significant financial and technological contributions, were to withdraw from the program, it is far from certain whether Italy and the United Kingdom would possess the resources and industrial capacity to continue the ambitious sixth-generation fighter project on their own. Even with Japan's continued participation, serious questions persist regarding the overall feasibility of GCAP, not least due to the enormous financial pressures on the United Kingdom's defense budget, which is already strained by various other large-scale, high-cost procurement programs competing for limited funds. Should Mr. Trump's tentative offer of F-47s for Japan be formalized and pursued, it would present another viable pathway for Japan to acquire a sixth-generation fighter capability, potentially on a timeline similar to or even more favorable than that projected for GCAP. When announcing the F-47 contract award, Mr. Trump asserted that U.S. allies are calling constantly with keen interest in obtaining an export version of the NGAD fighter. He indicated that the United States would consider selling these advanced aircraft to certain allies, but perhaps in toned-down versions. He elaborated on this by saying, "We'd like to tone them down about 10%, which probably makes sense, because someday, maybe they're not our allies, right?" This remark underscores a degree of caution in exporting cutting-edge military technology. For Japan, or indeed any other potential export customer for the F-47, the most significant hurdle is likely to be the staggering cost. Based on publicly available information and preliminary estimates, the unit cost of the baseline F-47 is anticipated to be at least twice that of an F-35, placing it somewhere in the formidable range of $180 million to $200 million per aircraft. On the other hand, a somewhat downgraded, export-specific version of the NGAD crewed fighter, which would presumably also be notably cheaper than the full specification U.S. Air Force model, could represent a very compelling option for Japan, particularly as an alternative to the potentially delayed or increasingly complex GCAP. Such an acquisition would grant Japan the prestigious opportunity of operating America's premier fighter aircraft, a privilege it was never afforded with the F-22 Raptor, despite previous interest. Furthermore, operating the F-47 would allow the JASDF to integrate more seamlessly with its U.S. counterparts, a factor of even greater strategic importance for Japan than for many European allies due to the specific security architecture in the Indo-Pacific. Moreover, a Japanese F-47 purchase could potentially open the door to other export opportunities for the type, notably to countries like Australia, which is increasingly deepening its security cooperation with both the United States and Japan. From the perspective of the U.S. Air Force, foreign sales of the F-47 would carry substantial benefits. Increased production numbers resulting from export orders could help to lower the per-unit cost of the aircraft for the U.S. military itself, and also contribute to making long-term maintenance and sustainment less expensive due to economies of scale and a broader user base. U.S. officials are already discussing the concept of different future iterations or increments of the NGAD combat jet. Andrew Hunter, the former Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Acquisition, Technology and Logistics, recently suggested that the baseline F-47 might simply be Increment 1 of the broader NGAD crewed combat jet initiative. In this context, developing an export-optimized increment would appear to be a logical and strategically sound approach. Conversely, opting for more US-made F-35s, or the F-47 would also entail certain disadvantages for Japan. These include a continued, and perhaps deepened, reliance on the United States for crucial operational support, sustainment, and future upgrades, at a time when even close allies are beginning to harbor doubts about the long-term reliability and predictability of Washington as a strategic partner, particularly given shifts in U.S. foreign policy across different administrations. In contrast, Japan's significant stake in the GCAP, with Mitsubishi Heavy Industries (MHI) playing a major industrial role, promises sovereign control over the aircraft once it is delivered. This means, for example, that Japan would have the autonomy to adapt or upgrade its GCAP fighters without needing U.S. approval or oversight. Tokyo would also stand to benefit significantly from MHI's industrial partnership in GCAP, reaping revenues from every sale of the aircraft to partner nations or potential third-party customers. For several years now, Japan has been consistently and substantially increasing its military budget. This trend is a direct response to what its 2024 Defense White Paper described as the most severe and complex security environment since the end of World War II. The primary threats identified in this document include China's assertive territorial ambitions, particularly concerning Japan's southwestern archipelago, including the Senkaku, Diaoyu Islands, as well as the persistent challenges posed by Russian military activities in the region and North Korea's ongoing missile and nuclear development programs. While a decision to completely step away from the GCAP effort would undoubtedly have considerable and far-reaching repercussions, extending well beyond Japan to its European partners and the broader landscape of international defense collaboration, further significant delays to that program might well compel Tokyo to very seriously evaluate these other options for its future fighter force. The strategic imperative to maintain a credible and technologically advanced air defense capability in a rapidly evolving security environment will ultimately drive Japan's decision-making process, balancing considerations of cost, capability, industrial participation, sovereign control, and alliance dynamics.